Stefan Molyneux is an atheist, and he used to defend atheists and atheism, but not anymore, apparently.
I have found myself growing increasingly impatient with atheists. Hey, it could just be because I'm cranky and old, but I think there's also some good reasons for it, which I'll share with you, and then you can tell me what you think in the comments below, and I look forward to your feedback. So one thing I can't help but notice is that if you are an atheist, overwhelmingly you are for big government. You are a leftist. You are on the liberal side. Almost 70% of atheists in the US identify as Democrats or lean in that direction. Majority call themselves political liberals, and 1 in 10 atheists say that they are conservatives. Now, conservatism has its pluses and its minuses. One of the pluses is that it's for smaller government. Almost 3/4 of atheists say that coercive government redistribution of money to the poor in the form of welfare does much more good than harm. And that is a challenging statement. In 2012, Barack Obama captured 3/4 of the votes among the religiously unaffiliated, and only 23% voted for John McCain.
Stefan seems to be making two flawed inferences here. The first is that he assumes that correlation is causation, and the second is that if there is causation, he seems to assume it must be atheism that is causing liberalism rather than the other way around. I think it is at least as plausible that folks who are raised by liberal parents, even if they are religious liberal parents, are more likely to be permitted to question religious dogmas and are kept in less of an echo chamber than conservative children, and thus are more likely to encounter atheism views. In other words, I think it is at least as likely that liberalism causes atheism rather than the other way around. Or perhaps neither causes the other, and there's actually a third factor which causes both. Maybe folks who dislike hierarchy are more likely to oppose both a cosmic authority and wealth inequality.
So, here's the thing. If I live next door to a Christian, that Christian can go to church and can worship and can do whatever they like, and they're not compelling me to do anything.
Really? Religious folks have never tried to compel anyone to close their business on Sundays, or abstain from renting out dirty movies in their video shop, or prohibit atheists from running for office? They've never compelled gay couples to go 2 counties over to get a marriage certificate to which they are legally entitled? Perhaps it's true that religious people have never personally compelled Stefan to do anything, because he's not a member of a demographic that they typically target. Nobody has advocated legally dissolving Stefan's marriage. Nobody has advocated any legal penalty for what Stefan and his wife do in their bedroom. No judge has used religion to argue that Stefan should be forced to drink out of different water fountains, or that his kids be forced to go to lower quality schools. If it doesn't personally affect Stefan, it must be fine, I guess.
They have their beliefs, I have my beliefs. We shake hands, we exchange cups of sugar in cake emergencies, but they do not force me to do anything. On the other hand, the lefties, by constantly running to Big Daddy government to enforce their moral conscience on everyone else, regardless of consequences, regardless of ethics, regardless of voluntarism, regardless of the need to choose that is essential to virtue, the socialists, by running to Big Daddy government, well, they force me to do lots and lots of things. They take my money, they bury me in regulations, they involve my cash in foreign wars, they do lots of god-awful things.
What? How is that the fault of the left? The left consistently tries to stop the worst excesses of American foreign policy. Does Stefan expect us to believe that neoconservatives and the Christian right were not cheering on every foreign misadventure of George W. Bush?
And if I try to follow my own conscience and do what I think is best with my resources, well, they support cats in blue showing up with guns to drag me off to jail because I'm not paying my taxes. So lefties support things like property tax, and property tax means you never really own anything in your house. You certainly don't own your house or your condo or whatever, because if you don't pay off the government, they can just come and take it from you. So all you're doing is renting from the government. You never own anything. And Christians have a thou shalt not steal, which gives them some ammunition against increasing state power. So I can't sort of help but notice that the Christians will try to convert me by the word and not the sword of the state,
Right, because the folks who want to criminalize guys doing it with other guys and force women to carry every zygote to term are totally not using the sword of the state. I'd far rather have my property be taken to pay people's medical bills or feed the poor than have the state enforce rules like these that help absolutely nobody.
Whereas the liberals, the lefties, the Democrats, well, they want to use the sword of the state to make me follow their moral agenda. And let's just say sword a tad more intrusive than word. And that is something that I can't help but notice. Atheism in and of itself, okay, well, that's, good cases to be made, and it's an intellectual argument that I've made before. But here's the problem. Atheists say that they reject irrational authority. They reject unjust and immoral authority.
Who doesn't? Everybody rejects authority that they believe to be immoral and unjust.
Very well. How about, and just try this, if you know an atheist or know somebody who's agnostic or whatever, bring to them the basic argument that the government is the initiation of force, that taxation is coercion, and see how they respond. Do they respond with, wow, never really thought of it that way before? Tell me more. Or do they respond as religious fundamentalists respond when you challenge their faith?
Oh, I could play this game too. Tell a conservative that asking employees for obedience under penalty of getting fired and not being able to pay their rent is coercive and see how they respond. Will they respond with, that's an interesting point, I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter? Or will they respond as if you've just uttered something heretical?
I will tell you, it is almost invariably the latter. And I've had many, many conversations with atheists about this particular issue, that the government is an agency of force, and that which you ask the government to do, you are begging for the initiation of force to be deployed in a geographical area against the specifically unwilling to coerce them to act against their own conscience.
And when you negotiate an employment contract with someone who cannot pay their rent without a job, the potential employer has so much leverage that such a negotiation is effectively a coerced negotiation. It is not sufficiently different from a negotiation conducted under duress.
And that basic reality is that it sort of helped me to understand that for the most part, atheism is an outgrowth of faith in the modern God called the state.
Just as I suspected, Stefan makes the fallacious inference that the correlation between atheism and liberalism is causal. He thinks being an atheist puts you at risk of becoming a liberal.
That is their new deity, the state. Got a problem? Run to the state. Need something solved? Run to the state. Want something done? Run to the state. Feel bad about something? Pass a law. Take more money. Borrow more money. Print more money. Make more wars.
Right, because conservative Christians absolutely hate those. Which ones were conservative Christians not cheerleading throughout the Bush administration?
That's how we solve everything. Run to the state. Get the guns out and everything is solved. And atheists in general, when they perceive a social problem, they just run to the government. And then atheists have the nerve to say to Christians, well, you just have this magical thing called God, which is supposed to solve all of these problems, like where the universe came from and how we evolved and so on. How ridiculous of you. I mean, that's not an answer to anything. Well, at least it's a peaceful answer to something. At least it's a non-blanket, geographically enveloping, coercive answer to something.
Yes, I'm sure that's exactly how Constantine saw it.
Do I particularly care that a Christian says that God created the universe? Yeah. It's not a big list on my priorities come tax time. But when atheists want the state to magically use guns to solve every problem in the known universe...
So atheists are bad because they're liberal, and liberals are bad because they love war and guns, and conservative Christians don't? Sometimes I think I'd like to visit this amazing alternate reality in which Stefan Molyneux keeps his brain.
That is a much more dangerous addiction to irrational authority than anything the Christian can come up with. The Christian can threaten people with hell, but if you don't believe in the religion, you don't go to hell. And if you do, I don't think you go to hell anyway. But the leftists, the socialists, the Democrats, the liberals, well, they threaten you with jail if you don't obey the very visceral and immediate Old Testament commandments of Big Daddy government, their Zeus of blood-drenched state power, well, that's a little bit more immediate to me. And if atheism was not associated with an addiction to the state and its power, I would have much more sympathy for it because it would be a little less in my face, in my wallet, and shiv pressed up to my side.
If I'm going to have statists forcing me to do things, I'd rather have them force me to pay someone's medical bills or provide homes to people than throw me in jail for wanting to marry someone of my own gender, or showing a dirty movie in my own theater. Neither theists nor atheists are especially prone to advocating abolition of the state, so statism is something that you're going to have to deal with regardless of who gets access to power. Since it's the case that both are going to use the state to force me to do something, I'd rather side with the folks who are going to force me to help people than those who want to force me to obey their arbitrary Bible rules. And of course, this assumes that there are no atheist anarchists. Molyneux fancies himself an anarchist. How many anarchists are Christians? What are the religious demographics of folks who want to abolish all hierarchy? I haven't seen statistics about this, but I doubt conservative Christians make up a majority of those who identify as anarchist. Isn't "no gods, no masters" a common anarchist slogan? Apparently, Stefan thinks atheists are more of an obstacle to a movement that uses such a slogan than Christians are. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.